Well, thank you very, very much. I am most happy to be back here after so many years. And what I'm going to do today is just to go briefly explaining some of the things I have done inspired by Jim Brown and my experience here in his lab here. To Jim, I dedicate this to Jim, my PhD advisor and Astrid, with my deepest gratitude. I have no words to express my thanks for the support, friendship, kindness, and how well they treat us, you know. We were young with my wife, foreigners, poor and naive, but with big dreams, and we reached them, most of them, because of them. Jim, one day somebody asked me to send a small, recommendation letter for Jim, and I just put this: in some areas, super scientist, a great advocate, and a very good person. So many years ago, and this is one of the things that happened to me here, when I came to study, I was one day in the park looking at the kids, and the kids, they were jumping all around, and they keep saying, "Oh, puke! Oh, puke!" And I said, "Wow, must be like great, oh great." So you say one day, can you say, "Oh, Gerardo, Jim and Astrid would like to invite you to have a Thanksgiving dinner with us." Oh, yes, puke. And he said, very, very politely, you know, Gerardo, what is exactly puke? And I said, "Oh, it is good, isn't it?" "Oh, well, not really." And when he said not really, I said, "Oh my God." I said, I did it again, you know? Anyway, sorry. You know, I came here to study with him because I am a naturalist, and I was being inspired by his papers, and I wanted to become a little bit more analytical. Because my dream since I was very, very young, and I don't know why it was that, is try to save as many species of plants and animals from extinction, you know? And as you know, what I came here is like hundreds of species, of thousands of species are becoming extinct. And we just have a recent estimate, a paper is going to be published in Science with the vertebrate species that become extinct in the last 100 years, supposed to have extinct between 13,000 and 28,000 years. So this is a big problem, and still some of the reviewers say, well, we're not sure if we're in the sixth extinction. I really don't think it's the point if we're not in the sixth extinction or not, where you're losing too many species, you know? So since resources for conservation are limited, what I have done is to use some of the macroecological approach to try to address some of these issues. You know? So in 1995, I put together the first database of all the distribution of the mammals of the world. Well, no, first of all, I did some analysis on the mammals at the country level. And then at the 2003, I put together this database with all the mammals of the world, the distributions. So, and I was basically this, I took it from Jim's webpage. And this is what it has inspired me to try to address some of these issues, you know. And I have to confess that I have not a very strong background in math or statistics, so some of these papers have been based basically on very clear patterns looking at the figures. And one day I was very worried with him, and I said, Jim, this is very simple what we found. And he said, Gerardo, the simpler the better. And that really, really helped me. So the first of all, when I put together this database, what I found is that in the last 20 years, around 25 of all the mammals of the world has been, 10% of all the mammals of the world has been described in the last 10 years. And we're not just talking about bats, we're talking about many species of monkeys, this animal which is a 100-kilogram antelope, look, antelope, this is small deer, and so on. So what we know about nature is very, very little. And we're losing so much habitat so fast that for sure we're losing a lot of these species. The one who said Laos there is a whole new family of mammals who's supposed to have been extinct for the last 15 or 14 million years, you know. So with other people, and I just saw who passed away, a good friend of mine who passed away last year, we predicted some of the areas where there should be the new places for species discoveries. And last year, we decided with some of my friends in Peru to go to one of three areas, to look for three of these areas, two with no, that doesn't show here, and one that shows here. And we were so surprised because we went to this place supposed to be have new species of mammals, and we discovered 8 new species of mammals, including a monkey, it's really nice monkey, porcupine, and other things. So in other words, this was very useful to predict some of these places. And to be honest, I thought we were going to find nothing, or maybe 1 or 2 species of rodents. So the second part of what we have done is I start to look when we have these large patterns or large amount of information, to first of all to just general patterns like the species distribution or the geographic range of the species, and starting to try to translate what we found into practical things for conservation. For instance, we find here that most of the species have very, very limited geographic ranges. And this is a whole new genus of monkey found in Tanzania in 2005. And this we produced the first these maps a few years ago. Now there are many maps like this for reptiles, for amphibians, for butterflies, for sharks, and everything. But ours were some of the first. And what was very interesting is that I could see on those maps things that I would have never been able to synthesize just by looking at a specific species. And also it helped me to understand issues like how important was Mexico, I'm from Mexico, in terms of this distribution of these patterns, how species richness overlap with endemic species, or with the species with small geographic ranges, or with the species at risk. And let me tell you something, like this kind of data, once we show this to the Mexican president or the ministers of the environment and so on, we have been able to do a lot of important policy in Mexico, like created the Endangered Species Act, we created the Endangered Species Act, and from one day to the other, we passed from having no species protected to have more than 4,000 species protected. We have to recreate completely the national protected area system based on this kind of patterns. Where are the distribution of those species? Which species are represented or not? What are species endangered? This is also one extremely important map in which we just put the what we call species politically endemic to one country. And again, for us, in terms of the Mexican policy, we found that many species, more than 160, are found only in Mexico. So in terms of the value of this for the conservation part has been extremely good. On the other hand, just understanding this kind of patterns has helped me to try to have a better idea what are the causes or that promote this kind of patterns, you know. So this is the political endemism, and this is a species risk. The first time that we produced that, it was also very clear that although many countries who have a lot of species richness have many species at risk, but there were many outliers, you know. And just having to be able to visualize this is a really important tool for us. So, do I have 15 minutes? All together? 5 minutes. Okay. So this is what I did here. This is my first paper on conservation ecology, and these are the notes that I did with Jim. We will sit down with his yellow pad, and then we wrote there, and I will say something, and he will translate it and say, what do you exactly mean, Gerardo, here, this? And basically we start with this paper that we call Global Patterns of Mammalian Diversity and the Missing and Endangerment. And it was very funny, because when I put endangerment, he said, Gerardo, endangerment is a word that exists in English. And I said, No idea. I don't know if that exists or not, but anyway, we managed to publish it in Conservation Biology. We started to do these kind of things that were very interesting. I mean, for instance, the species area curves, in which we have all these dots, you know, that I really like. And then we could see that there were some outliers. But for instance, in this kind of work, I find two interesting things. One, that we could call them, some species were megadiverse, just because we're large, some countries were megadiverse, just because we're big countries. But there were some outliers, and those outliers will tell us exactly countries who have more species or less species affected by this relationship, you know. And later on, I published this paper that I think is very, very important, in which we also graphically show for 117 species which have data, what was the population's extinction. And since then, we have been pushing this idea that population extinction is extremely bad, because it doesn't matter that there are jaguars in Brazil, if we lose jaguars in Mexico because of the function and the structure of the ecosystem, and because of the allocation and the capacity rules that we have mentioned here. Here, for instance, you can see, and now we have the data now for the most recent data, and we have seen that this is very dynamic. At the beginning, like in Africa, all the species in Northern Africa were lost, or in the Southern Africa. Now, the population losses are starting to concentrate here in Central Africa and in the Kenya-Tanzania region. So we then did this for the first time also an analysis, how much land would require the Earth to preserve 10% of all the ranges of all the mammals, you know? And it was a huge amount of land, like 15% of all the land of the world will be required to preserve 10% of the geographic ranges of the mammals. So clearly, protecting species in reserves won't be enough, because if we put on top of this bird, reptiles, amphibians, so on, everything will be black. All the dots will be black. So this also gave us a very good idea that I discussed with Jim many years ago about working with the semi-natural matrix, you know, those areas outside that Ed mentioned, outside the protected areas of pristine habitats, you know. And we also find out that most of the cells that are important for conservation of these mammals are already heavily impacted by humans, you know. And this was done in 2005. Surely this has changed rapidly. We have recently done the same for marine mammals, and we managed to allocate the most important areas for conservation, where they are concentrated. And what's really funny is that this paper, that for me was very simple, where we just show where they are, the concentrations of species and so on, was covered by most of the 20 most important newspapers in the world, and this in 300 web pages and so on. And basically what I think is putting all this information together and then translate it to the general public can be extremely useful, you know. And this is something we did with Jim and Anna Davis and I recently, in which we evaluated some of the factors that are threatening more the marine mammals. And also we produced a map where are the critical areas for concentrating these impacts, you know. I'm going to finish. We have shown that hot spots in the sensor Myers and so on is a very good idea, but in real terms, you will protect very little of the Earth if you just go by that. And we have proposed some changes. And finally, I'm working right now with one of my students on trying to see what are some of the functional diversity and how you lose what happened with a species that plays a certain role and you lose it, and how can they be replaced in human-dominated habitats, you know. Finally, there is a huge fraction of the surface of the Earth that is important for conservation of the species. We won't be able to protect them in natural areas. So managing the human-dominated lands call it semi-natural matrix, countryside biography, reconciliation ecology, and so on, is extremely important. And for me, it has given me, working with Jim and getting this insight on macroecology has been extremely useful to be able, on the one hand, to do this kind of analysis of work that are really inspire me and I like it, but on the second, to be able to apply it and do a very, very specific public policy in Mexico that now we're implementing in other parts of the world. At the end, I just like to give many, many thanks to Jim and Astrid to show me the way for a great, great journey. Thank you very, very much.